Welcome to the world premiere of Between the Devil and the Deep Sea, Lady Randolph Churchill's play, rediscovered and now produced and directed by Holly Dayton, and performed, or about to be performed for the first time by this wonderful cast here. I'm Alan Packwood. I'm lucky enough to be the director of the Churchill Archive Centre here, which actually houses the script for the performance that you're about to hear. Couple of housekeeping announcements first of all. If you have mobile phones, turn them to silent, but do feel free to tweet what's going on. If the fire alarms sound, that's not part of the performance as far as I'm aware, and we should make our way out of the fire exits and assemble on the grass next to the Barbara Hepworth sculpture. I'm sure that won't be happening. What is happening, however, is that we are all being recorded, and we hope to put certainly extracts of this performance up on our website as soon as possible. So, Lady Randolph Churchill. She's been rather overshadowed by her famous son. To most people, she's known simply as Winston Churchill's mother. Many of you will know that she was born Jenny Jerome in Brooklyn, New York, that she married Lord Randolph Churchill, a younger son of the Duke of Marlborough, and that after his early death, aged just 45, she went on to have a further 2 marriages, both to much younger men. She was a great beauty, once famously described as being more panther than woman. But of course, she was much, much more than this. She was a superb networker who knew how to get things done in Victorian and Edwardian high society. She pulled the strings that launched Winston's career as a soldier, helping him to see action in Cuba, the Indian Northwest frontier, and in the Sudan. During the Boer War, she raised the funds for, organised, and effectively commanded her own hospital ship. She was a prime mover behind a Shakespeare ball that raised funds for the National Theatre, and in 1912, she followed that up with a second extravaganza, a festival which turned Earl's Court into a sort of Shakespearean Disneyland, with recreations of buildings from the Elizabethan times. So you can see she was a doer, and she lived her life on a dramatic plane. And the fact is that for most of her life, she was more famous than her son. When Winston stood for election in Oldham in 1899, he begged her to come and campaign on his behalf. And when he toured America in 1900, his agent, Major Pond, wrote to Lady Randolph, urging her to accompany Winston and stating that it would doubly enhance the value of the lectures. Jenny moved in artistic and literary circles. She edited a transatlantic journal called the Anglo-Saxon Review. She was an accomplished pianist. She wrote her own articles and published her own memoirs. What I hadn't appreciated, until Holly started her research, was that she also wrote and staged plays. Now, fortunately, not everyone is as ignorant as me, and we have some special guests in the audience who know far more about Lady Randolph. There's my team, and from my team we have Natalie and Madeline here. They've put on a wonderful exhibition in the cases outside featuring some of our material from the Churchill papers relating to Lady Randolph, so do have a look at that on your way out. We also have here David Locke. David is currently working on an edition of the correspondence between Winston and Jenny, the follow-up to his excellent book, No More Champagne, about Churchill's finances. We have here Lawrence Geller, the chairman of the International Churchill Society and the sponsor of the Churchill Archive for Schools online product. And we're also delighted and thrilled to have in the audience Jenny Churchill, the great-great-granddaughter and namesake of Jenny Jerome. But of course, the real star of tonight's show is Holly. Holly's here from the US, studying for her MPhil in Modern British History at Trinity Hall. She's supervised by Ben Griffin, and her dissertation, which I think is due in quite shortly, is on the dramatic works and worlds of Lady Randolph Churchill. She did her undergraduate degree at Stanford University, where she majored in history and minored in theatre and performance studies, writing a dissertation on the bad theatre of the Great War, popular performance during the First World War. She's unfortunately leaving us, but going on to do great things. She's going to be attending Northwestern University this autumn to start her PhD, working with Professors Deborah Cohen and Tracy Davis. So you can see that when she came here, she was looking for a way to combine her passions for history and drama. And she's found it in Lady Randolph. And in particular, she has found or rediscovered Between the Devil and the Deep Sea, Lady Randolph's last and hitherto unperformed play. So to tell us more, please welcome on stage historian, producer, impresario, Holly Dayton.
Good evening. Hello all. It's wonderful to see you here tonight to participate in the first ever public reading of Lady Randolph Churchill's third play, Between the Devil and the Deep Sea. Before I begin, I want to thank the Churchill Archive Center team and in particular, Alan. They were so accommodating in helping to arrange this reading. From providing the venue to coordinating logistics to helping publicize the event, they really have been a theatrical producer's dream. It's been an honor to work with them. Lady Randolph Churchill wrote Between the Devil and the Deep Sea in 1920. It was her third play. Her first, His Borrowed Plumes, was written and performed in 1909. Her second, The Bill, was written and performed in 1913 and then again in 1914. These facts usually come as a surprise to people, few of whom know, as Alan mentioned, that Lady Randolph wrote plays at all. If they do know of her, they know of her as the mother of Winston, as was mentioned, the political wife of Lord Randolph, or perhaps as the coordinator of the hospital ship Maine during the Boer War. But Lady Randolph was a playwright, one of a community of playwrights, female playwrights, at the turn of the century that are barely remembered and rarely discussed. We know J.M. Barrie, the playwright of Peter Pan, Arthur Pinero, and of course the great George Bernard Shaw, but we rarely discuss Pearl Craigie, Constance Fletcher, Cecily Hamilton. This is unfortunate because it misrepresents the history of playwriting in the early 1900s. More women were playwrights than ever before by the late 1800s, attracted by the potential to make a significant profit through their work. Where, in the first few decades of the 1800s, a playwright would receive only a small lump sum of money up front for their text, by the end of the century, one could reasonably hope to achieve 10% of the gross profits from a production. A female playwright could, ostensibly, make a tidy profit from a successful play. However, few female playwrights received financial arrangements equally as generous as those given to men. In general, theatrical managers and producers saw women as outsiders. Male playwrights during the early 19th and early 20th centuries often rose through the ranks of stage managers and journalists. They were able to cultivate relationships and make themselves known within the theatrical community before they ever put their pen to writing a play. Though some women who became playwrights started as professional actresses, the majority started as novelists. Men regarded them as accomplished playwrights and writers of books to be read in drawing rooms, but generally disdained them as being unqualified to write for the theater. By the turn of the century, however, the number and unquestionable success of some female playwrights forced male managers and critics to acknowledge that, indeed, women were capable of writing for the theater. Actor-manager John Forbes Robertson wrote in 1904 that the women writers are coming on nowadays. As their number grew, women writers increasingly diversified the kind of work that they produced. Some wrote rhetorical pieces for the cause of women's suffrage, while others generated commercial entertainments more or less in the style of men. The class background of women playwrights was also broadening at this time. Female playwrights in the Edwardian era included women from the middle and upper middle classes and even a few peeresses. This is all to say that there was no monolithic type of women's playwriting at the turn of the century. Different social classes of women wrote plays about different subjects, infused with differing degrees of political or social argument. Though some suffrage and anti-suffrage plays had clear political stances, many works written by women from this period present complicated perspectives on the right relationship between men and women, and the relative need for or opposition to legal and social change. Lady Randolph Churchill's Between the Devil and the Deep Sea is a case in point. She takes on the contested social topic of divorce without taking too single a political stance on the subject. Though I do not wish to give away too many of the plot points, we need to, after all, save something for the reading. The subject of the play, divorce, does require some historical context. When the play was written in 1920, divorce in Britain was rare, adversarial, unequal, and often ugly. When I say rare, I mean rare. In 1920, in France, which had a roughly comparable population, there were approximately 27,000 divorces. And in the United States, there were 171,000. In the whole of England and Wales in 1920, there were 3,090. Part of this rarity came from economic limitations. The high cost of divorce proceedings and the necessity of arguing one's case in the Royal Courts of Justice in London meant that divorce was rarely accessible for lower middle and working class couples. The process was adversarial in the sense that divorce proceedings sought to find a guilty party. If a court found out that a husband and wife were working together to decide a settlement or to establish a mutual story, their case would be dismissed for collusion out of hand. One side needed to be found straightforwardly at fault. It was unequal in the sense that the criteria for divorce was different for men and for women. A wife needed to prove that her husband had committed adultery and an additional wrong, such as physical cruelty or extended desertion. A husband needed only to prove adultery. Finally, it was ugly in the sense that all divorce cases were conducted in open courts and were extensively covered by the press. The cases of well-known politicians or socialites would be covered in special detail. The individuals involved were exposed to serious public humiliation and often faced social ostracization. Lady Randolph herself experienced some of this public coverage when she divorced her second husband, George Cornwallis West, in 1914. Her case was simpler and shorter than many others, as it was clear that her husband had long been having an affair with the actress Mrs. Patrick Campbell. Yet, Lady Randolph was close friends with other women like Lady Colin Campbell and playwright Pearl Craigie, whose social careers were significantly damaged by the coverage of their divorce trials by the press. Though it may sound like this state of affairs, adversarial, ugly, surrounding divorce would have been unacceptable by 1920, there was no public consensus on divorce reform. Some saw that the publicity surrounding divorce served as a deterrent to libertinism and encouraged fidelity. Yet others saw it as a form of voyeurism, dangerous to public morality. Some found that the restrictive conditions of divorce were unjust, locking unhappy women into abusive relationships with madmen, drunkards, or convicted felons. Yet others saw that they were necessary, as the marriage bond was holy and indissoluble except by an act of adultery. Members of the aristocracy had an additional element to their uncertainty. As, on one hand, individuals locked in abusive, loveless, or failed marriages wished to leave them. On the other, in an age when the aristocracy was increasingly critiqued as out of touch and indulgent, they wished to avoid generating more negative press about aristocratic moral weakness. The legal opinions, popular literature, Royal Commission reports from the time show no consensus of opinion about divorce, even within classes and within genders. It was complicated. So, tonight, I invite you to engage with that complexity, presented by 10 very talented Cambridge students. Let us take you to London in the spring of 1920. Enjoy the drawing room banter, indulge in the melodramatic romance, and appreciate the messy presentation of aristocratic marriage and divorce that this play presents. Out of the archives and onto the stage, I give you, for the first time ever, Lady Randolph Churchill's Between the Devil and the Deep Sea. Act 1, Scene 1. Lady Lindley's drawing room, simple and in good taste. 10 o'clock. Dinner is over. Joan, the Duchess, Susan, Phyllis, Cynthia, and Lady Harker are discovered having coffee while waiting for the gentlemen. A few are smoking cigarettes.
I'm certain I should make a lot of money if I opened a hat shop and someone lent me a few thousand to start it with.
Yes, give credit to all your friends, wear the prettiest hat yourself, and be bankrupt in 6 months.
Oh, you are discouraging. What about my cushions and enamels? Not to speak of my watercolours. They sell beautifully at bazaars.
Those are foolish trifles. Now, my bindings would probably earn
Nothing.
me...
You would all starve. As for my taking up music as a profession, if I had to choose one, I don't believe I could teach a child of 6.
But you play too beautifully, although you always say you're out of practice. And you can play anything from that early fellow, what's his name? You know, the one that wrote Fugues.
Bach?
That's it. To that futurist man, Scrim something.
Prescriabin a futurist.
Well, his music is as impossible to understand, and yet you play it as though it were Romeo and Juliet or Bohème, not able to give music lessons. Nonsense.
No, my dear, believe me, this is an age of experts, and accomplishments are no good. The pretty is no longer tolerated as the refuge of the broken-down gentlewoman. If you want to make a living, you must go down into the arena and compete with the strongest.
You are right. The lesson of the war has taught us that only the practical and useful can succeed.
As an American, I was always under the impression that an English girl's education was most practical, and if their accomplishments were few and far between, at least they were taught to be excellent housewives and knew all about housekeeping and such things.
In my day, we were brought up in that fashion.
How funny. Just fancy adding up the butchers' and bakers' books. I could never add, except on my fingers, but that takes such a long time.
Mrs. Emery, in America, where I understand you are all millionaires, you are, I suppose, all businesswomen and know the workings of the stock exchange in the city?
You mean Wall Street? Indeed, no. My father, bless him, like most Americans who spent their lives in the pursuit and worship of the golden calf, had a horror of anything useful in his women folk. He expected us to be always beautifully dressed and full of accomplishment.
What a grind. I mean the accomplishments. But how delightful to be enormously rich. So rich that one couldn't spend it all.
Schopenhauer says that women are either spendthrifts or misers when suddenly possessed of money.
My father was the most generous man on earth, but can neither speak nor understand one word of any language but his own.
American.
On the other hand, my sister and I were stuffed with as many languages as our poor heads could hold.
Darling, we'll envy you your perfect French and Italian.
Not to mention the way you can say, Streef und Verfluchte.
Naughty one!
The King's English ought to be good enough for anyone.
I'm afraid we led a butterfly life. Sang, played, danced, and dressed a great deal.
Well, you never taught anything useful.
Oh, I've worked at chemistry fairly successfully, and my sister is a certified nurse, but we had to give up being useful as my father thought we were becoming fatty and strong-minded, and said he expected that we would crop our hair and wear square-toed boots next.
I love Bob's hair. You would have been very previous if you had done it then.
We'd better all learn a trade quickly, and shorthand and typing.
I shall teach dancing, the latest steps, and fortune-telling.
I should have thought it sufficient cultivating being a gentlewoman.
She'll fail if she means herself, Cat. But I say, where are those men?
Not very flattering to us, remaining so long in the dining room, is it? I confess, I like the foreign custom of all coming out together.
But how about powdering one's nose?
You do not seem to require any privacy for doing that nowadays. Or putting stuff on your lips.
Joan, when does the charming husband of yours go to Egypt?
What? Leaving you alone? Isn't that unusual?
Well, of course he's not going. How could he get away? I can't think who's put that about.
Perhaps your great admirer, Major Edgarly. Or possibly Colonel Glaston?
Oh, Joan, come and sit here. I want to ask you something.
I can't make out that Lady Harker. She's a perfect pig. Everyone knows how charming Lord Lindley is. So handsome, and of course he adores Joan. As for Francis Edgarly, he doesn't care tuppence about Joan. I look upon him as my particular property.
I should label him dangerous, not my type of man.
Well, it's lucky we all haven't the same taste. Hurrah, here they are. I'm going to stand till I get the one I want. Heavens, the old Duke's still making a beeline for me. Or is it you?
Enter Lord Lindley, Colonel Glaston, Major Edgarly, and an ambassador.
Joan, my dear, have we been too long? Edgarly was holding forth on Russia.
And we on what profession we should take up if necessity forced us to one.
Why not try the oldest of all? You might qualify.
Lady Harker, I'm shocked.
The oldest of all? What does she mean?
Better not ask. I know one thing. She'd certainly starve if she adopted it. But what about an autobiography? A human document? Isn't that a good branch of industry nowadays?
Of course, how stupid of us forgetting. I'm no writer, but I could boil up my relations all right, skin my friends alive, and show my lovers. That is, of course, if I had any. Lady Lindley, were you at Christie's this afternoon? I didn't see you.
Yes. I was looking at that very inferior Romney that went for such a preposterous price.
I am annoyed I never saw you. Such a beastly crowd. A day wasted.
Is it as bad as that?
Worse. But what's the use of my devotion? You only laugh at this, and yet I know you have need of it. Don't be vexed with me. A life like yours with seemingly everything the gods can give, sometimes hides a tragedy.
Lord Lindley is seen arranging bridge. Bridge party then settles itself, consisting of Lord Lindley, gentlemen, Phyllis, and Lady Harker.
What nonsense! Would you ferret an imaginary skeleton out of my cupboard?
I have no need to ferret. I know your skeleton. He's handsome, but under a charming exterior and perfect manners, he's brutal, cruel, and heavens, to an adorable woman like you, so beautiful, so to be worshipped.
Help, help! John, come to the rescue. Major Edgarly is bombarding me with compliments, as if I were a Frenchwoman.
Oh, there. You're laughing at me as usual, but I swear one day I'll make you listen.
What? You swear they are true? But of course, no compliments to our hostess could be untrue.
The general attitude of an Englishwoman towards a compliment is that she's being made a fool of, or it's merely a politeness. John, you know I'm impervious to them.
I know you well enough, dear friend, to see that you are tired and weary and longing for us to go.
That would be useless. Hugo insists on my going later to that squash at the Foreign Office.
But you're not fit for it. Why should you?
I must. There's someone he wants me to see.
They go on speaking inaudibly.
You really are compromising both of us by running after me like this.
Running after you? I like that. You are cruel. You haven't spoken one word to me tonight. All eyes for Joan.
Oh, rubbish. What a load of old rubbish.
Why make me suffer like this? Haven't I given you all I have on earth to give? Myself.
And a delightful gift it is. But it's better that you should suffer than not feel at all.
Are you chaffing? Darling, I never know if you mean what you say. I see you tomorrow. Oh, will you come? 5 o'clock?
Yes, yes, anything for peace. Of course I will, little woman.
Francis turns away from Susan and returns to Joan.
Look at those bridgers, oblivious to the world, sitting opposite each other playing cards, losing their money and their tempers.
Cards can be quite scientific.
Invented to amuse an idiot king.
Evidently you don't play.
No, I hate it.
That accounts for your attitude. But I agree with you, it can be overdone. We were dining the other day at the Wallerans. I was longing to listen to that Mr. Lingfield. You know the man who's written the wonderful book on Persia? My heart sank when we came to the drawing room and I saw 3 bridge tables prepared. The rest of the evening was spent solemnly playing, and oh, how badly do those politicians play.
They imagine it to be relaxation, and, well, they don't concentrate.
Love's the only game worth troubling about.
Game?
That is when you're not in earnest. One can't play the game when one's in love. One loses one's cunning.
I heard a Frenchman define love as one who is miserable and the other who is bored.
A variant on one kisses and one who is kissed.
John, seeing that Joan and Francis are absorbed, turns away with a sigh.
My dear, you were such a friend of Joan's. I'm worried about her. She is not herself tonight, so pale. I sometimes wonder if...
I know. You mean Lord Lindley? I am sure she's not happy. She's too reserved to tell me anything, and perhaps too loyal to him. But notwithstanding that suave and charming manner of his, he sometimes looks cruel, and I have heard him say things that hurt.
How could he? Joan is such an exceptional woman, so staunch a friend, so honourable, besides her beauty and talent.
Yes, indeed. She is much too good for him, or in fact, any man.
How fortunate that hers is a head not easily turned. Look at Major Edgarly. He seems to greatly admire her.
I don't like him.
His mother was a beautiful woman and a friend of mine. But she was Italian and came from a very wild stock.
Ah, that accounts for his foreign looks. I always thought he was too well dressed for an Englishman. I mean, overdressed.
He has great charm and all the glamour that a brilliant soldier's career can invest him with.
Yes, I believe he did do well, but so did thousands of others.
Mrs. Emery, we are waiting for you. I'm glad to say we defeated you.
Good cards are generally more useful than good play.
Your Excellency, what do they think in your country of these dreadful taxations? We are all ruined.
They could not enforce it in my country. They said in the war, and still say, take our husbands, brothers, but not our money.
Isn't that a little unpatriotic?
Joan, we shall be finished in a minute. You ordered the car?
Yes, but must I go? I feel so tired.
We are expected. You looked animated enough talking to Edgarly. A little rouge will put you right.
You know I don't use any.
The bridge is over. They move about.
How grand you all look with your decoration. I suppose we're all going to the Foreign Office? I shall dash home and put on my send-down badges. I haven't even got the OBE, and Joan has been made a dame.
I saw your photograph often enough in the papers in nurse's attire.
Haven't I seen you in a red-hot cross nurse's get-up?
Never in the papers.
Oh. Perhaps they thought I looked pretty in mine.
Au revoir, but not at the Foreign Office. I rarely go to such gatherings.
Delicious evening, but it's always delightful here.
Rather a bore to have lost 4 pounds and through the inattention of my partner.
Who's the poor victim? I mean, culprit. What a pity you came. Too bad, isn't it? Hi, Major Edgarly. I've got a car. Shall I give you a lift?
Oh, very kind of you, but,
Oh, come along.
Hoyden!
Exit all but Joan and Lord Lindley.
I wish I wasn't going to that party. Must I?
I never coerce you, but I expect you to go and seek out, if possible, that Labour fellow, Wilkes. Fancy making a minister of such scum.
Why should I speak to him if he's such an impossible creature?
Ah, that's quite different. I want to know what his views are on this new land project. You can find out. The rougher and more uncouth these ruffians are, the more they are flattered by being noticed by women of your appearance and breeding. And they dearly love a title.
They're not as snobbish as you think. I hate a crowd.
Difficult to meet your lover, eh?
I haven't got one, as well you know. Sometimes I wish I had.
It would give you the only chance you will ever get, my dear, for that divorce you long for.
I've never said so.
You have looked it.
How'd you look divorce?
With cold and contemptuous hate, as though I, your lawful lord and master, were not good enough to untie your shoestrings.
Is that quite true? I have tried hard enough to make you like me, God knows.
Bah, you have never cared for me. That precious mother of yours, grand and mighty dame, she made you marry me.
No one could have forced me to marry unless I'd wished it. We choose to forget our early happy days, but after Charlie's birth, I realized many things.
Well, if you were disappointed, I was not. Indeed, my beautiful wife, you have given me what I married you for, a son. A handsome aristocratic woman at the head of my table who plays her social part as she should, and tonight is going to be useful as well as ornamental.
These weary years of deception in a loveless home where the chief anxiety is to keep the truth from the world.
I play up to it, don't I? And your infernal proud spirit does the rest. As for a loveless home, haven't you got everything you want? Money, consideration from the world. Aren't you the best-dressed woman in London, the envy of all those precious souls you frequent?
Hugo, we have discussed this so often. What are all these things compared to peace? A little affection, a little love.
Love, ha, blessed word. Who thinks of it between husband and wife after 8 or 9 years of marriage? Why, even Tristan and Isolde's love philtre was only supposed to work for 3 years. But let me warn you against trying to find consolation outside. I should have no pity on you, my lady fair.
You insult me.
I'm not so certain. That fellow Edgarly with his hairdresser looks and his Italian blood is quite ready to make up to you, if he hasn't already.
Major Edgarly is a very distinguished soldier, and a cultured man. Your base suspicions are beneath contempt. These perpetual steams are more than I can bear. Your jealousy is not that begot by love, but simply the jealousy of possession. If it were not for little Charlie,
You would leave me. Try it. You'd either starve or not starve.
How dare you? I have many friends.
Friends have a way of vanishing when one is under a cloud.
Not mine.
Your male friends might stick to you for a bit of kind favors received.
Hugo, this is intolerable. You're only satisfied when you've goaded me into a rage.
I confess you look very attractive when your eyes flash with fury. I feel my power over you, and I can repay you in some way for the scorn with which you treat me.
Joan, in despair, mechanically takes up a small vase on the table and holds it to her lips to prevent her from speaking.
What have you got there? What are you pressing to your lips?
I'm trying to prevent myself from speaking.
Who gave you this? I've never seen it before.
Major Edgarly brought it to me the other day.
I thought as much.
In a fury, Lord Lindley throws the vase on the ground and smashes it. Joan stands cold and silent. Enter the footman.
The car is at the door, my lady.
Bring her ladyship's cloak. Is this the one you want, my dear? I'm so sorry you caught this vase. I must get you another, and a prettier one.
Joan does not answer and walks out.
Sweep up this rubbish.
Goes out. Footman looks at the fragments and then at the door.
His arm.
Curtain. Act 2. 8 months later. Lady Lindley's study, a simple but distinguished room. The Duchess is discovered alone. standing by the fire, warming her feet. She has on a hat and a coat. Enter Mrs. Emery.
Joe not here yet?
No, she's late. It is cold, but this house is deliciously warm. I suppose there is what you call central heating?
Yes, and it's the one thing I miss in England. In America, the meanest house has it.
I'm afraid I could never persuade the Duke to have it. Telephones, bathrooms, and all these modern comforts he disdains.
What a Spartan!
He considers what was good enough for our forebears is good enough for him. In fact, he thinks it quite natural that at home Langley we should keep our cloaks outside the dining room and put them on after dinner when we move into another room. The late Duke, who had very little hair, used to put on a hat as well.
That's going a little too far. Notwithstanding my American love of everything old, I see no object in sacrificing comfort to what is really a fad. You know the Stormont's Place, Dempster Moat, Duchess?
Yes, I know it well.
To me, it was like being plunged into the 15th century with its rushes on the floor, tallow dips, unheated stone passages. Oh, the cold.
Well, the fireplaces are enormous.
They are, and your face is scorched while your back freezes. And then the ghostliness of the bedrooms with the wind whistling through the gigantic keyholes, making the tapestry on the walls move about in a creepy, crawly manner. I slept with all my golfing woolies on and all the tallow dips alight.
Sir Reginald makes a cult of his house and won't allow any innovation. It is the most perfect thing of its kind in England.
I am cured for the moment of ancient houses. No panel discomfort for me. Now, where can Joan be? She's generally so punctual. What about some tea? I'm dying for a cup.
If you will take it upon yourself to make it.
They move to the tea table. Phyllis makes tea. Tea business.
Duchess, don't think me indiscreet, but knowing how fond you are of Joan, I must tell you that I'm very worried about her.
You distress me. Poor child. Since the death of her little boy last summer, I have seen little of her until quite recently. But I confess, apart from her grief, I have noticed a change. She seems so distraught and preoccupied. I have not heard anything about Lord Lindley. He's not giving her cause for anxiety, is he? An intrigue, possibly. Not that I have ever heard of any. He always seems so devoted.
That's the worst of it. I believe there is a tragedy brewing. He makes her wretchedly unhappy, and yet I can see nothing tangible. I wish he would do something, then she might get rid of him.
Oh, how dreadful. You don't mean divorce?
Why not?
I cannot admit divorce. It's such a terrible thing, so against all the tenets of the church, the breaking of vows.
Not nearly so terrible a wreckage as that of two people who, hating each other, are tied together for life, both longing to be free. This country is very behindhand in its divorce laws.
And yours, dear lady, are perhaps too advanced.
Enter Joan, in her deep mourning coat and hat on.
I do apologize, dear Duchess, for being so late. I hope you've had tea?
I took it upon myself.
Darling, I'm so glad. I was kept longer than I expected at this old charity organisation. Phyllis, give me a cup, like a dear.
More tea business.
What pitiful cases one sees. Some of these women are in great straits of all kinds. The worst are those who are hopelessly tied to worthless men. No redress, no getting free, no divorce. One woman's husband has been a prisoner 5 years. There's another 5 to run. She's a fresh, good-looking woman with one little boy. Thank you. She cares for someone else who wants to marry her, but of course she can't get a divorce from the husband who she despises. There she is, wasting the best years of her life without love, without even affection.
It is sad, but this is her misfortune, her cross to bear.
I call it monstrous. Why should any woman be called upon to make such a sacrifice?
The law, the law. We have but one life. At the best, a long, drawn-out agony if one's made a mistake. The only way out is divorce. And how cruel it is. So difficult, so unfair to the woman.
In this country.
I believe it is easier than it was.
But at what cost? What humiliation?
It is better to suffer for the rest of one's life, even if undeserved, than to live under a cloud.
Enter Lord Lindley.
My dear, forgive this intrusion. I don't often invade your sanctum. I thought you were out, and I was coming to look for that Donatello bust. Have you moved it?
It's always been there.
Ah, you say so. Wives have a convenient memory when it suits them. Isn't it so, Duchess? I want to show it to Mr. Lamson, the art dealer, who's in my room.
You don't mean to sell it? I'm so fond of it. It's the only...
Don't place your affection on inanimate objects, my dear. But I'm not thinking of selling it.
May I remind you it belongs to me?
What is yours is mine, sweet love. and if I felt like selling it, I should not hesitate, particularly with the splendid prices your compatriots are giving these days. They mop it all up.
It would be a pity to part with anything which can give one pleasure. There are so few good things, and so few people who really appreciate them. Do you not think so, Lord Lindley?
Oh, my wife's appreciation increases with the fear of losing the object of her affection. She is very tenacious. I do believe that if you thought you were going to lose even me, you would put out every tentacle to keep me.
Uncomfortable silence.
Well, au revoir, Duchess. I'll leave you to continue your gossip in peace, extolling your friends, possibly praising the absent.
We were discussing divorce.
I can't imagine a more fruitful subject.
Lord Lindley goes out, taking the bust with him.
I am glad he isn't going to sell the Donatello.
It's only his fun, I'm sure. Just teasing you.
Fun.
Well, if it isn't fun, I wouldn't take it lying down. I should like to see a free-born American treated in that way.
Few things are worth a quarrel.
Footman announces, Mr. Steele.
Goodbye. Do not overtire yourself, and come and see me soon.
You are not to be mopey. I will telephone you in the morning and see if I can persuade you to do some shopping with me.
As the two ladies go out, they meet Mr. Steele at the door. He bows and stands aside.
Good evening, Mr. Steele. Won't you come near the fire? You're very punctual.
I counted on the block on the city, and there was none.
Will you have some tea?
No, thank you, but may I light a cigarette?
Please. Mr. Steele, I've sent for you not only as a friend of the family, but also on a legal matter. I want to divorce my husband.
Divorce your husband, Lord Lindley? But since when? I thought he was a model husband, so devoted and generous. Is it possible? I can't believe it. You've never complained or shown that you were unhappy.
Why should I show my soul in curl papers any more than I would my body? My life has been very difficult for some years, and now it's become intolerable.
But I've never heard a breath of scandal against Lord Lindley. He has...
That's the difficulty. He seems attractive and kind man, but he's cruel and hard. However, I don't wish to go into details. I will only give you facts.
Please.
6 years ago, when my boy was 3 weeks old, I heard a noise late one night outside my room. Thinking it was possibly my dog, I got up without waking the nurse and opened the door gently. I saw my husband and a lady going downstairs. He was lighting her steps by torchlight.
Ugh.
The next day I taxed him with it and swore I would never live with him again.
I'm not excusing him, but perhaps knowing the weaknesses of men, you might have been a little forgiving.
I confess at first, angry and disgusted as I was, had he tried to mollify me, it's possible I might have given way. I cared for him, I suppose. But he never tried, and my life has become a slow martyrdom. He seems determined to punish me for having found him out. In public, he's all courtesy and attention. In private, his ingenuity to annoy and hurt me is incredible.
But he is so proud of you.
He only wants me as a figurehead to help him socially. I can stand it no longer. You must advise me on how I can get a divorce.
But you have no proof of infidelity, desertion, or cruelty.
No proof. His infidelity 5 years ago, doesn't it count? And at such a moment.
You've condoned it.
Condoned it?
Yes, by living under the same roof with him ever since.
But not as man and wife.
Who is to prove it? Only your word against his.
But this is monstrous. Surely if I can't divorce him for infidelity and cruelty, can I for incompatibility of temper?
Oh, impossible.
I wouldn't mind being thought of a scold and a shrew to be free. My friends would know the truth.
Alas, my dear lady, in this country you can only get a divorce for infidelity and cruelty, or desertion. And desertion only if the time has been long enough and they have been asked to return and refused. And of course, do not forget the publicity.
Why would there be any? A French friend of mine was divorced in France and nothing appeared in the papers.
The law is different there. In England, the publicity is supposed to be a deterrent. Your French friend was a Protestant?
Yes, and Roman Catholics do not admit divorce.
Misconduct is enough in England, but in Scotland, a divorce can be granted for a wife's desertion.
We are neither of us Scotch. Is there no way out of it? Mr. Steele, surely you can help me.
I'm truly distressed, but believe me, anything is better than divorce. How many women have to put up with intolerable conditions? You tell me that with the exception of that one incident 5 years ago, you would not prove anything against Lord Lindley.
I've never taken the trouble to try and get any proofs. His comings and goings do not interest me.
I admit in this particular case, cruelty could be added to misconduct, as the law judges it as such when the wife is under the roof at the same time.
I could prove to you many other cruelties. Everything but absolutely beating me.
It would be repugnant to you, I know, but what of having him followed?
Detectives. I couldn't do such a thing even to be free. Besides, he's far too clever, as we found out.
But I must point out one other thing. What would you live on? You who have been brought up in the greatest luxury, may I even say extravagance?
I have a few hundreds a year of my own.
You couldn't live on it.
Other women could.
Ah, but not you. And if you left your husband, of course you wouldn't receive anything under your marriage settlement.
I wouldn't touch a penny of his money in any case.
My dear friend, think it well over. I wish I could help you. I am entirely at your service, but do realize the terribly serious step you are contemplating, even though for the present, you have no chance of success.
I've thought it out and have come to an absolute decision. Nothing can change me.
Goodbye. You will send for me. Meanwhile, I'm afraid I can be of no use, unless you find out something definite.
The footman meets Mr. Steele at the door before going to let him out. Colonel Glaston is in the morning room.
Has he been there long?
About a quarter of an hour, my lady. He wouldn't disturb your ladyship.
Show him up.
She hides her head in a cushion for one moment.
Have I disturbed you?
No, of course not. It was only my old family solicitor, Mr. Steele. You know him?
Oh, Steele. Yes, I know him. Sound, honest fellow. More than could be said about all solicitors.
They seem to be of little use when really needed.
What is it? Can I help?
No, no one can.
Well, give me a chance. Let me try. I would give my life to be of service to you.
John. Yes, I believe you would do anything for me. But believe me, dear friend, there's nothing to be done. I must either endure what has become an intolerable situation, or take a great step.
A great step? I get. You mean to leave Lindley?
Yes, for good. Either divorce him or be divorced. Anything to be rid of him forever.
But I'm sure you can do neither. Divorced? You? Well, it's unthinkable. Impossible.
Why?
In the first place, you've given him no ground to divorce. And secondly, if you had, you could not face the publicity. And for what I know about Lindley, you probably would not get no proofs against him. Women do not come into his life. At least I've never heard of anyone. Unless you know.
No, I know of no one. Fidelity from a man you do not love, respect, or live with is of little value. I seem to be at an impasse.
I have watched your anxiety and...
What's the use of your friendship if you can't help me?
But you've never opened your heart to me before. But I knew.
You? How?
My heart told me you were getting desperate. But for heaven's sake, be reasonable. I cannot bear to think of you mixed up in scandal, a prey to vulgar tongues or gossip.
How easy it is for you to say, be reasonable. You who do not realize what it is to live under the roof of somebody you hate. I will wake with that weight on my heart and go to bed with it.
Oh, if I could only remove that load. The knowledge of it gives me sleepless nights.
Are you as much interested in me as that?
Interested? But you know that I...
Yes?
With your proud spirit, you could not stand the censure of the world. Everyone thinks you have a devoted husband, and you'd not get rid of him without such truth coming out. Let me implore you to stay with him.
How strange men are. What do you care?
You don't understand. In honour, I could offer you my love, my protection. Don't you think I would do so?
Love. I always thought love could rise above everything, every obstacle, sacrifice even honour.
Joan, you don't know what you're asking me to say, what you're tempting me to say. How could one drag down one's beloved?
Anything would be better than this. Now that my little Charlie is gone, my life is a hell.
Don't make a worse one for yourself.
Oh. I'm tired. I think you'd better go. I'll see you later, tomorrow.
John stands looking at Joan in despair when the door is opened by Edgarly, who comes in unannounced. He looks suspiciously at the two. Joan has her back turned, looking into the fire. John goes to Edgarly.
Lady Lindley is very tired. It would be kind of you not to stay.
That is a matter of opinion. Lady Lindley, am I intruding?
Oh, it's you. Come in and cheer me up.
Edgarly, with a look of triumph, opens the door further.
You were just going, were you not?
John, without a look or a word, goes out.
My, how pale you are. That fellow Glaston's been tiring you, so worthy and so dull.
Oh, he's salt of the earth. He does not understand women.
Delicious creatures, who does? It is only through love that one can understand a woman's mood, and her moods are as infinite as the stars in heaven. Which one is my queen indulging in tonight?
A horrid one. Rebellious, desperate, reckless.
There's only one cure. A break. A chance. Other surroundings. And if possible, with one who can sweep you off your feet. Joan, I would give you my soul, my life, to persuade you, to let me be that one. How often have I asked you, in all your different moods I've tried?
Major Edgarly. Francis is taking a mean advantage of me.
It is true. I've never seen you in such a mood, but you're one of those cold, unemotional women who can always control and contain themselves. It's not your sense of duty, but your want of inclination, which makes you adamant.
You forget my bringing up, my pride.
There's no room for pride in real love. Joan, dearest, look at me. I know I'm not a good man. I don't pretend to be one. But I love you. I love you. The thought of you, the warmth of you, has become an obsession which is driving me mad. Why do on with this loveless life? Haven't I given you every proof of my love? Haven't I given you every proof of my devotion these last 6 months? I've been patient, reserved, sympathetic, everything you wanted me to be. God knows at what cost. But I don't plead again. I'll go out of your life if you wish it.
But what would you have me do?
Come and try happiness with me. I adore you. You shall forget this grim life of yours. I'll arrange everything. I'll go off at once to Brussels and write to you from there all the particulars. I'll wait there for you. Oh, my sweet love, my wonderful, beautiful queen.
I wonder could bring myself to do it. No, go. I implore you now this moment, please.
Do you mean it? If I go, I shall never return. You're too understanding and straight a woman to ask me to come back.
Yes, I will come.
You will?
You can count on me.
Francis rushes out. Curtain. Act 3. A week later. Brussels. A sitting room in a hotel. Joan and Francis are discovered, standing by a window. She has on a white tea gown, and they have just finished dinner.
And this is the city which you made your triumphal entry after the armistice. How wonderful it must have seemed after all that terrible fighting. Smiling faces, cheering, waving of flags.
It was indeed, but you can't call it my triumphal entry. What of King Albert and his brave queen, bless her?
What a moment for them.
I shall never forget it. I was proud to ride behind them with my chief.
How long ago it already seems. You're so modest, you've never yet told me how you won your DSO.
Oh, that's all ancient history, not a bit interesting.
But I know and have always admired you for your bravery.
What luck, darling, that you had such a good crossing. That journey can be so beastly. I lay awake all last night. I do wish I could have been with you. I hated the thought of you traveling alone.
It was wiser. Besides, I can look after myself. It was quite an easy journey. But were you so certain I would come?
I never doubted it for a second.
Why?
Your type of woman never goes back on her word.
Talk as though you knew women well. You even classify them.
Only from studying them. Frankly, they interest me immensely. And I've never met anyone like you. You're so above them all. Your personality, your courage, independence, beauty. See, I put that last. With most women, it would have come first.
Francis, I half wish you were not so learned on the subject. Have women played so great a part in your life, tell me?
Would you have me an anchorite? Oh, Joan, sweet woman. I love you. Isn't that enough? I might concoct 1,000 lies. You'd really not care for me more.
Perhaps not, but I still want to feel that I have someone I can rely on, someone I can trust.
Oh, sweet one, you can count on me. My hope and desire will be to make everything easier for you.
How good you are. I think you might find me frightfully expensive.
Expensive?
I've never had to consider about money. And do you know I've only £500 of my own?
That, I suppose, is just enough to keep you in boots and hats.
Oh, a few things besides.
I'm an ignoramus as regards women's dress, or how much they spend. My mother, who was an Italian and most beautiful, always dressed picturesquely. I can see her now at Caprero, walking on the terrace with trailing skirts and a bright parasol. So graceful.
You speak so deliciously of her.
One's mother is one's first love, and perhaps one's last.
Tell me about Caprero. She left that place to you. I think you told me once. It's near Bologna.
Oh, no. It's about 25 miles from Rome. A lovely motor drive. How I wish you could see it. Caprero in May with you.
Why shouldn't we go there?
Oh, you darling, why not? But could you? Dress would be a frayed excuse, and in any case, wouldn't do for Caprero.
I don't understand.
I thought you told me that you had a dressmaker in Brussels. Such a good excuse in case anything happens.
I shall have no need of any excuse, frayed or otherwise.
How sure you are of yourself. A clever woman is so full of resources. I can't tell you how much I admire you, a woman after my own heart. No fuss or recrimination, no tears or fears. You're truly wonderful.
Francis, dearest, you do love me. I can trust you. You'll never fail me. I've no one else in the world now.
Never if you want me to say anything so stereotyped.
How strange it is that in the big situations and crises of life, it is the trivial material things that arrest one's attention and comes into one's mind. They alone seem to matter. All the way here, I was wondering to myself why they worried me. As I was leaving my rooms, my book spoke to me and said, "Don't go." The eyes of my favourite pictures watched me reproachfully. My piano looked more inviting, and as I went through the door, a sprig of Glastonbury thorn caught my scarf as with an arresting hand, the holy thorn. For a moment I hesitated.
But you're not leaving them for good. These household gods won't run away.
Ah, you think they can be replaced? But what are they all compared to the peace of mind I have now? At the thought of meeting Hugo again, all indecision vanished. I've never told you, dear, of the last scene we had. I was in my study playing the piano when he came roughly in telling me to stop that infernal noise. He said he was writing a speech and couldn't get away from the sound. Of course, I stopped at once. But as he went out, he stumbled over my little dog, Kelpie. Poor old darling, she set up a piteous howl, and in his annoyance he kicked her viciously out the way. The door was open and she was flung down the slippery marble staircase and fell halfway down the landing.
Oh, the unmitigated brute.
I'm sure he didn't mean to be so violent, but Kelpie, being very old, died in the night. As a puppy, it belonged to my darling Charlie.
Oh, poor child, but don't dwell on these ugly scenes. You'll have me in future to comfort you. To come to when Hugo is odious.
Hugo?
A knock is heard at the door. They separate.
Entrez.
A young girl comes in.
Pardon, I'm sent by Madame Dufour, the laundress.
What a preposterous hour to come. Send her away.
I might as well speak to her. I came away in such a hurry, she may be useful.
All right, I'll leave you for a little, and then you won't send me away, will you, Joan, my love?
Joan shyly looks away. Francis goes.
Come in. You're the laundress of the hotel, I suppose?
Oui, Madame. Madame Dufour, recognising the names Monsieur and Madame in the visitors' book, sent me at once with these handkerchiefs which Madame left last year.
I left?
Madame left so suddenly there was no time to send them with the other things.
Oh, there's some mistake. These are not mine. You've never seen me before.
No, but Madame Dufour knows Madame well, and also Monsieur. I've washed his shirts, and see, the embroidered swallows on the handkerchiefs. Pour le retour, Madame Dufour said.
Impossible.
But surely you are Madame Fodin? Is that not so?
When was I supposed to be here before? What was the date? Can you remember?
I think it was in November, more than a year ago. But it's in the book. If Madame wishes, I will ask the concierge for it.
No. C'est bien. You can go.
Rosine goes, leaving the handkerchiefs. Joan, fascinated and agitated, takes them up and tries to make out the monogram.
S. Something. SS. No. S.I. Susan Inverley. The swallows. Her hobby.
She rings the bell.
Madam rang.
Please bring me the visitor's book. And quickly. I must know. Thank you. Leave it there. Mr. and Mrs. John Fadden, November the 15th, 1919. His handwriting. And November the 22nd, party.
She closes the book and puts it on the sideboard, and then, hearing a step, quickly goes to her room and shuts the door softly. A moment afterwards, Frances enters in her dressing gown, looks round, turns out the light, and crosses to her room as the curtain comes down for a few minutes. Act 3, Scene 2. Next morning, fire burning brightly in the sitting room, breakfast table laden for two. Joan has had hers. The chair is pushed back, napkin lying on the floor. She is discovered in a traveling dress, her bag, hat, and coat on a chair. She appears quite calm. Waiter appears.
I found out from Madame the train for Paris leaves at 11:30.
Thank you.
Waiter goes, stands aside for Francis, who has evidently been out. He takes off his coat and hat.
I see you've had your breakfast. Do you mind if I have some?
Certainly not. I'm glad you've come in. I was afraid to miss you. I'm going to Paris by the 11:30 train.
Alone?
Alone.
May I ask you, before you go, for an explanation of what took place last night? We know the French proverb that often woman varies, fool is he who trusts her, but...
The Japanese say, autumn sky, man's heart.
Joan, there's a limit. Why were you cruel enough to deny me your door last night? My love, to miss our appointment, you've all woman to fail one, to make a fool of one. Even through the door, you hadn't the charity to give me a reason, to make some excuse, however lame. Was it and is it fair?
Francis, it's right that you should have an explanation, and I'm going to give you one. But why not finish your breakfast first?
That can wait. Besides, the steely, unusual blue look in your eye has taken away my appetite.
The little laundress girl who came here last night brought me by mistake some handkerchiefs, which the laundress declared had been left by a Mrs. Fadden, who was here last year in November with her husband, Mr. Fadden. I sent for the visitor's book and saw in your handwriting the entry for Mr. and Mrs. John Fadden, 15th November 1919. The handkerchiefs, embroidered with swallows, had the initials S.I. I remember Susan Inverley describing some she had embroidered with swallows. I also remember, when thinking it all through, that last November year you and she did not come to the Denniston shooting party. She had influenza, so she said, and you had to go abroad suddenly on business. The rest is obvious.
I always admit the truth when there can be no consequences, but even so, what can that little episode be to you? I love you.
She is a friend of mine, and that episode reveals to me your character. I won't dwell on the degradation of your bringing me here under the same name to the same hotel.
I did it because it was the safest place. These people know me and my ways and show no curiosity.
Thank God I have found it out in time.
Joan, what do you mean? What difference can frivolous passages with Susan Inverley or any other woman make between us? It's all past and gone.
So would I be in a short time a thing of the past.
I have never been so in earnest. I love you as I did not think I had it in me to love. You are the soul of honesty, of courage. You cannot mean really to fail me, to have taken this dangerous step for nothing. Imagine if you were to be found out.
I am found out from your point of view. And not only am I going to fail you, but I now see that I'm going to sacrifice you as well, to gain my liberty.
I don't understand you, but I've never yet coerced a woman, and if you're the narrow-minded, unstable creature I'm beginning to find out, I release you. You can return to your happy home, and no one the wiser.
I can't return. It's impossible. I burnt my boats.
Burnt your boats? What on earth do you mean?
Believing I was coming away for good, I left a letter for Hugo, telling him that I was leaving forever and I was joining you here.
Oh my God, woman, what have you done? You must be mad.
I was mad to believe in you and thought you meant it all, and that later we should marry.
Marry? Such a thing is impossible. I have no money, at least not enough to keep a wife, and besides, our position would be a hopeless one. You in disgrace,
And this is the great love you're offering me. A week in hiding, followed by a life of deceit and shame under my husband's roof. Makes me feel less sorry for you, that unwittingly and in spite of yourself, you are going to be the means of setting me free.
Setting you free? How do you propose to do that?
Don't you understand that necessarily you will be the co-respondent when Hugo divorces me?
I will deny in court on oath that I have ever had anything to do with you.
You forget that we are down in the visitor's book as man and wife. No one will believe you.
You're right. You're right. I now realize you never intended to give yourself to me. It was a plot. I was to be made use of, cheated, ruined, in order that you might be free.
To be a co-respondent has never ruined any man. You can believe me or not. I swear that I meant to give myself to you, and that when I became your wife, I would have done all I could to make you happy. But your cynicism, your episode, as you call it, with Susan Inverley, treated in such a callous manner, has opened my eyes. I never could trust or love you now.
Joan.
I shall disappear out of your life, and we must both take the consequences of this tragic affair.
It can't be. It's damnable. This is the bitter bit with a vengeance.
Waiter returns.
Madame has just time to catch the train. The luggage is on the taxi.
Joan puts on her hat and cloak.
I'm sorry. It was a ghastly mistake for both of us. I was between the devil and the deep sea, and fate has decided.
She exits. Francis looks at the door, then turns slowly, and, shrugging his shoulders, Lights a cigarette. Curtain. Act 4. 2 years later, beginning of June, a room in a small flat in Chelsea, very plainly furnished, but with evidence of taste. Attractive chintz, a few books, a table littered with ribbons, beads, and artificial flowers. A few bows are waiting to be packed. As the curtain rises, Joan is discovered at the table, making bows. She is dressed in a simple, well-cut grey dress. After trying several different combinations of colour, she throws them wearily from her.
I can't be bothered with them today.
A knock is heard.
Come in, come in.
John Glaston enters.
You? I didn't expect to see you this week. I thought you'd returned to Woolwich.
So I have, but it's not 100 miles from London, is it? And I couldn't help thinking of you working among all these trimmings on such a lovely day. And for all those fat, vain old women to deck themselves out in them.
Every woman isn't old or fat, thank goodness, but vain. I hope they all are. It means customers to my wares. Or Madame Karenina's.
I can imagine how some of them put them on and how they must look.
Well, they can be put on in many ways. Here's one that can be worn in front, or behind, or upside down, or tied up like this, or hanging over the ear like a Spanish dancer, or resting on the coil a la 1830, or again like this, which is the proper way. Do you like it?
It's adorable. But why are you obliged to make money by making these ridiculous trimmings? Though they are very charming. I should have thought your literary gifts were...
My literary gift. Do you know, when I took a little essay that I'd written with great care to one of the leading magazines, they wouldn't have it unless I signed in full. They only wanted the notoriety of my name. I tried others, the same story.
My poor friend. What brutes.
I won't enumerate other failures. Some were very degrading. I thought I might join a provincial theatrical company on tour, in a small part. All the manager said to me was, "What are your legs like?"
Oh, Joan, how...
Oh, don't be distressed. I do not show them. I laugh when I think of it.
Come out, won't you? I can't bear to hear all this. Let's walk in Kensington Gardens.
And brave all those slums to get there. No, what about Battersea Park?
It's still rather hot. Should we wait for the shadows to grow longer?
Shadows. I have had enough of shadows in my life. I want sunshine. Sunshine all year round.
Oh, how I wish I could bring it to you. Joan, won't you let me try?
John, please don't begin that subject again. You know my views.
But there can be but one reason for you not listening to me.
And that is?
You do not care for me.
But I do. How could I help caring for you when your devotion and sympathy helped me through those dreadful months? Through the horrible divorce trial? I can't think what I would have done without you.
Nonsense. Dozens would have gladly done the same for you. But caring isn't loving.
Shall we go out? I'll go get my hat and parasol.
I beg you to listen to me. We can go out later. I must say what I have to say.
Why today?
You're always putting me off. I can't bear it any longer. I must know. Be kind and let me know my fate.
Why make me say what will hurt us both?
Both? Is there hope for me that you will marry me?
Never. And you promised you would not ask for me again.
I can't help it. I refrained only because I thought you didn't care. But lately your little notes made me think you missed me. Forgive my conceit. I thought you seemed more tender to me when we did meet. More.
Yes, say the word, loving. It is so. I do not deny it.
Darling!
It's no use. I cannot marry you. I've made up my mind. Such happiness cannot be mine.
Perhaps it is too soon. I'm clumsy. I will wait. You see how patient I can be. Haven't I been so in the past? It only gives me some certainty that one day I can give you my name, protect you, work for you.
No. No, my dearest friend, it's impossible. My life is ended. I care for you and your good name too much to drag you down.
Drag me down? How absurd. Listen, I have some news to tell you. I've been offered a command of the London district. It's quite a good post, congenial work, a decent salary, and incidentally, a KCB.
How splendid. I'm so glad.
I've been working for this, as I know you would despise an idle man. Besides, I've accustomed to work all my life. But to work for you, what an incentive. And there is no doubt this appointment will help the situation.
John, don't you see that it makes things even more impossible?
Indeed, I don't see. You're absurdly hypersensitive. How can it make things more impossible?
I can't and won't spoil your career.
Well, damn my career! Forgive me. But what my career is as it is, compared to your love, to our happiness.
You forget I am living under a cloud. In England, a man in a public position lives under a fierce light.
Nonsense.
My dear, you know it. My divorce was too sensational. Remember the horrors of the press, gloating over every detail, the abuse showered on me.
It's all forgotten.
I wish I could think so. But I know, apart from everything else, you wouldn't bear to have a wife whose reputation was besmirched.
Love sweeps away all obstacles.
All men say that until it comes to the test. No, I am finished with men. My experience has been too disastrous.
Do you put us all in the same class?
Forgive me. Just because you are so true and loyal and unselfish, I will not accept your sacrifices.
Well, then I'll refuse the appointment. I'll get something in the city. There, one's private life doesn't matter.
Then you recognize the truth of my argument.
I would brave anything for you. I'd force the world to respect and receive you.
You couldn't do it.
Your wonderful personality would bring all your friends to you.
Hasn't up to now.
You haven't given them a chance. I hear it on all sides. Joan, tell me. I've never asked you before, but why did Eggerly leave you? I'm told he has gone to India. I shall never understand his not marrying you, though thank God he didn't. Of all the unmitigated scoundrel.
Perhaps I wouldn't marry him.
Why? But you must have cared for him to risk it all. If it depended on you.
If? Why torture me like this? I can't explain. Anyhow, he suffered quite enough through me. I've nothing to say.
Dearest,
All this is so painful to me.
Dearest, forgive me. It's brutal of me, and these thoughts force themselves on me, in spite of myself. But if you marry me, they would be forever buried.
Never, never. You must leave me now. I must be alone.
I'll go. But will you send for me? Promise?
Joan does not answer, and he goes out. She returns wearily to her trimmings, takes up a bow mechanically and drops it to the floor, remaining in deep thought and steeped in melancholy. She does not hear the Duchess, who, after knocking, comes in.
Joan, my child, at last.
So good of you to come.
It is not your fault that I am here. If I hadn't met Colonel Glaston coming out of the door, I should have been denied it, as usual.
Oh, Duchess.
There's no use saying, oh, Duchess, when you've shut your door even to me, your best friend.
You're indeed one of my few.
And Phyllis? Is she nothing to you?
Of course she is.
Well, then why hide from those who love you?
The truth is, I feel it in your great kindness. You'll end up trying to force me to meet people.
Well, and if it were so?
I couldn't bear to be received on sufferance, to be treated with secret, if not open, scorn.
No one could treat you so. Your delightful personality, your beauty would carry the day.
You don't really think so. You say it to comfort me. The divorce was too scandalous. Hugo and I too prominent. He in the government, a cabinet minister.
Poor child. You were driven to it. I knew what you suffered.
Edgarly, so well known, a brilliant soldier, a reputation for good looks.
How flippantly you talk of him. Are you really so indifferent? Joan, I must know the truth for your own sake. If you cared for Major Eggerly sufficiently to take so desperate a step as to go away with him, then why did you not marry him?
Believe me, I couldn't.
Am I to believe that you deliberately made use of him to gain your divorce and freedom at any price? Can it be? Joan, I thought better of you. Your want of faith to him astonishes me. No man should be treated in such a cruel fashion.
It was not like that. How can I tell you? I went to him because I was convinced I cared for him, and he seemed the only refuge, the only escape from an intolerable life.
Yes, I know.
I meant to repay the sacrifice he was making for me, but a life of devotion to him. Believe me, I couldn't bear that you should think I only made to make use of him.
Yes, but
the fact is but when it came to taking the plunge, to giving myself to him, my heart failed and I fled.
That was cruel to him. But why then the divorce?
You see, I'd written to Hugo telling him I was joining Edgarly for good. But how generous and wonderful of you to be so lenient, thinking me guilty, to give me your friendship still. You, who have led such a perfectly blameless life, who are such a saint.
Oh, who am I to judge anyone? Oh, my child, we have all had our temptations. I had mine when at 20 I thought to go to Venice with a lover.
A lover? You?
But instead, alas, I went there at 60 with my maid. Now speak to me of Colonel Glaston. You mustn't be foolish. It is more than 2 years since the tragedy, and I know he wants to marry you. He's confided in me and told me of his heart's desire. Don't you care enough?
He's taught me to love him. But I won't drag him down, spoil his life, his career. I should reproach myself the rest of my life. The ghost of my folly would be between us always, eventually ruining our happiness.
You're quixotic. You know you are innocent.
It's not an intention.
That does not count in a case like this.
Dearest Duchess, can't you see? The world thinks me guilty and can never know the whole truth. No one will ever know the whole truth.
I will not force your confidence, but you had better tell me the truth for your own sake.
This is only to you. I have your promise?
Yes.
Well, when I got to Brussels that same evening, I found out that Francis had been there a year before with some woman at the same hotel, and he was only repeating an experience. You can understand what I felt.
Was there no mistake?
None. I locked my door and left the next morning after telling him what I knew.
I am glad you told me. I am more determined than ever to uphold you. Even in these democratic days, I still have considerable power, and I mean to exert it, and at once.
At once?
Yes. Listen, tonight I have a small dinner party and some music afterwards. Most of our dear old friends will be there, and you must come.
Impossible. I couldn't face them. I won't be forced on an unwilling world.
I know that the world is kinder than you think. Make the rapprochement, and after all, if it should fail, you would not be worse off.
They will only call me brazen.
You have not put them to the test. I will be at your back. You will see. Be yourself. Your own charming, gracious self, and all will be well.
No, I can't. I can't come.
I shall expect you at 10 o'clock. I have your promise?
Besides, I have nothing to wear.
No excuse. I will send you your old dressmaker, that marvellous Celeste. She will work a miracle.
I suppose I must give in. I can't resist you. But you will see how they receive me.
Very well, if I know them, and your marrying Colonel Glaston will do the rest.
That can never happen.
You do not know my powers of persuasion.
I'm beginning to find them out to my own cost.
Duchess kisses her and goes out, shaking her finger at her and saying,
10 o'clock.
Curtain lowers. Scene 2. Same day. Time, 10 o'clock p.m. A reception room in the Duchess's house. The company is grouped about. Some standing. The Duchess is on the landing receiving people who go into the other rooms.
I'm terribly early, most unfashionable, but I thought I would find the chosen few in here.
Most people who arrive late when they are asked after dinner do it on purpose to show they have been somewhere else.
Whereas I suppose you mean they've been sitting at home, their hands in their laps, their eyes on the clock.
There are more snobs in society than one realises.
Don't you believe it? But it takes a snob to discover a snob.
Snobs? I don't mind snobs. I suffer them gladly. There's an inherent humility in them, which is quite refreshing and praiseworthy.
Humility? Is that the right word? But perhaps it has a different meaning in America.
I mean that snobs are always striving to be with people they consider their superiors. Isn't that an act of grace to admit a superior? I remember once hearing a compatriot of mine attacked by a personage who declared that all Americans were snobbish because they dearly loved a lord.
Is it denied?
My friend replied she didn't think snobs had a nationality, but if Americans had a weakness for a lord, it was because they were under the mistaken impression that a lord always meant a gentleman.
Good for your friend, but who cares for titles nowadays? It's all a back number. I hope the personage skipped it.
What slang?
Susan, you will never cease being a child.
Oh, but everyone is so strenuous and serious. One would think the war is still on.
I don't think people are a bit strenuous, except in their dancing. They've forgotten the war and its horrors.
Not all of us. There are some whose minds still dwell on the lonely places where the only objects are little wooden crosses.
Oh, Boer, you make me shiver.
My mind dwells on some of the nice women we've lost,
who've been ostracised like Lady Lindley.
She's only out of society because she wishes to be. She has plenty of good friends.
Don't you carry your tolerance a little too far? But you were always very bohemian. As for the person in question, she was a great hypocrite. These superior souls are always the worst.
Souls? You call her a soul? Good heavens, Lady Harker, you might be had up for libel.
Really? Is that a fact? I don't understand. By the way, I hear Major Edgerly is on his way back from India. Fancy he's keeping away 2 years from his beloved London.
Ah, but there is a reason for that. He has subjugated a rich widow. They say he will marry her.
Wrong, as usual. I only heard from him last week, and he never mentioned any widow.
Would he be likely to?
As for Joan Lindley, even the Duchess won't receive her.
Oh, I can't believe that. She's so kind, and Lady Lindley is such a friend.
But the Duchess won't stand for people who are found out. They have to be cast out.
You're very censorious, Susan, and frankly, it has not come well from you. You forget that personality means everything in this life. Joan was and is deservedly popular. Her charm would break down every barrier if she chose to put it to the test. Lord Lindley treated her very badly.
Poor man, how do we know? Anyhow, he didn't take long to replace the lady.
I hear his new wife rules him with a rod of iron.
Best thing for a man. I believe she means to stand for House of Commons.
They'll be a great force politically. He in the Lords and she in the House.
Isn't that Major Vavasor Jones?
I trust he's not coming this way.
Why?
Oh, don't you know? He keeps a diary.
Joan appears. The Duchess greets her and affectionately and stands talking to her. Phyllis rushes forward to see her.
Well, I never. And in the latest fashion. I wonder where she got that dress. And where does the money come from? I see one thing. It's well to make friends of the old cats.
Particularly when they are duchesses and have no objection to imposing their pet black sheep on one.
I'm always so glad when my mind is made up for me. Of course, if the Duchess receives her, I shall. Susan, what will be your attitude?
I shall probably forgive her. I can afford to be generous, as she didn't succeed with Major Edgerly. But she must be made to feel her position, no grand airs.
Do you still admire Major Edgerly? I thought Major Vavasor Jones occupied your thoughts at present.
Only a mild flirtation, to reward him for having mentioned me so often and so deliciously in his book.
Oh, the diary. But wouldn't it be wiser to be off with the old love before you're on with the new?
Certainly not. There might be an awkward pause.
They laugh and move about. John Glaston appears.
Susan, there's dancing in the Red Room.
Oh, dancing! I've been wasting my time.
She turns and sees Joan.
Little Susan, how are you? As young, as pretty as ever, as I can see, and full of the joy of life.
Oh, how do you do? It's very nice seeing you again. Don't talk to me of looks. And your clothes. You ought to have forgotten how to dress. Well, seeing that,
Seeing what, my dear?
Well, of course, that you've been shutting yourself up, I mean.
Only to enjoy coming out again all the more.
You have been greatly missed. I'm so glad. No doubt Lady Lindley has many new friends who see much of her. As to the old...
They're always the best. Ah, dear Lady Harker, I'm sure to be counted on.
She puts out her hand, which Lady Harker, taken aback, shakes violently, and then moves on, muttering and shaking her head. The Duchess maneuvers to get the others to move towards the other rooms, leaving John and Joan alone.
What did I tell you?
It was a dreadful ordeal, and I felt all eyes on me.
Well, they saw a lovely sight. Joan, I can't waste another minute and ask you to put me out of my misery. Your imaginary barrier is down. You have no excuse.
How can you bear to be tied to a guilty woman, even if the world forgives?
The test of loves are but two, the power of recollection and the capacity to forgive. But you can't deceive me any longer. Our darling friend the Duchess sent for me and told me the truth you so foolishly kept from me. Not that it would have mattered or made any difference. But why? Why?
Perhaps I wanted to test you.
John kisses her hands as the Duchess reappears.
You need not tell me anything. Thank God, and bless you both. I will not tarry a moment, but will go and confide it to Susan under an oath of secrecy, not to breathe it to us all.
I prepare for congratulations before you leave.
Final curtain. End of play.